to the Unleash Success podcast, where we break down the secrets of success to give you real tools and strategies that get real results. And now, here's your host, Corey Corpodian.
This is Corey Corpodian. Welcome back to Unleash Success. If you guys haven't subscribed to our newsletter yet, be sure to go to unleashsuccess.com and just enter your email so you can get all the tools and strategies sent directly to you each and every week. Today, we're going to be interviewing Sam Winkler, who is the co-founder and CEO of Liquipel. Sam is a serial entrepreneur, starting businesses since he was 18 years old, and has grown this one since 2009 to an international brand. Sam, thanks so much for coming on the show.
Thank you, Corey. I'm really excited to be here, and I'm excited for this podcast.
Awesome, man. Awesome. So can you tell us what Liquipel is and how you got started in it?
Yeah, so, Liquipel, the key that I truly believe is always trying to find a problem to a solution, and that's what Liquipel was. Back in 2009, 2010, there was a lot of issues with water damage phones. My partners, Danny McPhail and Kevin Bacon, kind of saw that vision and having issues with cell phones and water damage. And they had a kiosk that actually was putting screen protectors on cell phones. And in 2009, 2010, when you put a screen protector on the cell phone, you actually had to use water to put the screen on the phone, like Zag and those companies back in the day. And what was happening is the phones were being water damaged. So we came together and we said, okay, there's got to be a solution to solve this water damage problem. And we looked into different coatings, different things, and we found using a nano coating to coat the device to make it to where it's water resistant. So when you do get damaged, it doesn't affect the device. And that's kind of where the idea of Liquipel first started.
Now, nanotechnology, back in 2009, that was pretty advanced. What's your background? How'd you guys find this new nanotechnology?
So it was actually a lot of research. Danny actually, one of my partners, was in this coating industry. So he knew where to look, where to be, and kind of developed the concept of super hydrophobic coatings using scientists and people who were living and breathing nano coatings. So we found a couple scientists that the concept and the idea could be done, and basically went to the scientists and said, okay, we have this concept. Is it possible to use a similar coating that currently coats phones for paint? So what you see today where a phone is white or a phone is black and it's really good looking, smooth, doesn't come off. So that was the concept of, okay, can we use that same technology, that same coating, but instead of coating a color, can we coat a super hydrophobic coating that allows water to bead off and stop corrosion from happening? So we went to the scientists when we said, okay, can we create this concept? And in 2009, there was no such thing as water-resistant and waterproof cell phones. It was so new to the world. When I first demoed this product, and I took I remember it was a BlackBerry, one of the old BlackBerries, and it didn't look any different, didn't feel any different, and we're in a crowd, and when we throw the BlackBerry in a jar of water, and everybody's just shocked, right? Because you got to remember this coating was 1,000 times thinner than a human hair. So you don't see it, you don't feel it, you don't even know that it's on there, but yet you see electronic device working underwater in 2009, 2010. That was unheard of back then.
Mind-blowing.
Yeah, it was the first 2 weeks of actually launching the product. We had almost, it was 500 million impressions. The first 6 months, we had 2 billion impressions on the company. We were on the front page of Yahoo, CNN. It was just not out there yet. So we met the scientists, we created the proof of concept, and that's when we went out and we raised the capital to actually launch the product. But the product and the machinery and the technology was not fully launched until 2012. So it did take some time of development, but when we launched, it was amazing. I couldn't have asked for a more successful launch.
That's awesome. What's your background? You were pretty young when you started working with these guys in this company and designing this all. how'd you get into entrepreneurship to begin with?
So my father is a very influential person in my life. I've looked up to him since I was a little kid. He's always been an entrepreneur. I mean, he alone, when he was 17, had a T-shirt of the year, right? I mean, he was always a very serial entrepreneur, always coming up with new crazy ideas. And, I always wanted to kind of, when he bought a car, I wanted that car, I would go and buy that car right after him. So I was always really learning from him. And when, in school, I was not the greatest in school, let's be honest. It was one of those things for me where I was always interested in doing things, whether it was selling things on the side or, interested in not the books. And so when I was 17, I talked to my dad and I said, hey, Dad, I just don't think school's for me. Like, I have all these ideas, I'm coming up with these projects, and, my teachers are telling me that, are you sure you don't want me to sign an NDA because these projects you're showing me, this could be a real company and this could be something that's really big. And so, I started thinking to myself, I said, maybe this isn't the right path for me. So my dad said, okay, well, you can leave the school and I'll let you study me and work with me. And, you have to be here every single day. You can't leave till I leave. And, you can, and I looked at him as my school, right? I mean, at the end of the day, it's really important to surround yourself with the people that you can learn from and act like a sponge. And that's what I did. So, I started looking at business plans and what the issue is and how in issues that are kind of relevant to the time period of where I was. So at 18, what was big? It was alternative energy, being eco-friendly. So, started looking into that and creating ideas around that. So it was really about learning from the people around me and knowing the path I wanted to take.
And you're absolutely right. I mean, just surrounding yourself with the right people that empower you and positively influence you is so important to getting to that next level. But very interesting track for your life. Your dad said, he was an entrepreneur, so he supported you in that. What do you say to somebody who is, 18 years old, listening to this right now, and they're faced with a decision? Do I go to college, even though I wasn't really passionate about it, or do I jump into, trying to start a business or like finding someone to learn from like you did? What would you say to them?
I would say it's really important to, if you're influenced by the people who are already around you. So if it's hard to say, just go after it. If you're really passionate in something, then it will take you, right? If you're passionate and you find an idea that you just know and you believe 100% is going to be successful in your own mind. It doesn't matter what other people believe. You personally have to believe it. And if you believe it, you'll be drawn to it. So whether if you have a choice to go to college or you have a choice to follow this path that, you want to create and really go after it, I think it's more about, if there is a path that way, you'll be drawn to that path and you'll create and you won't be able to go to college because you'll be so into your concept, your idea, and your vision, and that will drive you to that path. But at the same time, if you're surrounded by a whole family that's all college driven, it's hard to really separate that mindset because, when you're growing up, it's and you're surrounded by people who are all based on, college or all based on entrepreneur, you have to make your own path, right? And it might be hard sometimes, but if the idea and the vision is strong enough, you'll definitely follow it. And in my suggestion, college or no college, whatever you're passionate about, you'll get attracted to that.
Yeah, absolutely. It's funny because I really believe that you have to be resourceful. So if you really want something bad enough, nothing can stand in your way. But like you said, the mindset that you have to have, you've got to really believe in yourself 100%. Sounds like you found something you were super passionate about, building businesses, and then jumping into Liquipel. And I'm curious as far as, what did you define success as back then?
Back then it was really about, just at 18, before you have a success under your belt, it's very hard to really know what success was back then. I mean, I was just passionate in building, an idea and making that idea a reality, right? And that was what was so exciting about for me. So the success back then was coming up with an idea and a concept, and then being able to hold that idea or concept or product in your hand and be like, wow, I did this. Well, it wasn't so much about the money. It wasn't so much about, really what the world defined me as success. It was more about, wow, like I accomplished something that was nothing and created it into something. So at 18, that's what it was all about, was creating. And then once creating, executing, and actually having something, tangible that I could look at or hold or feel and say, wow, I did this. And that to me was the success back then.
That's awesome. I always talk about success and failures a lot. And I'm just curious as, along the road to building up this company internationally. And I know we talked about it. You've sold over $30 million of product alone, just yourself, and many more. Along the way, we all make mistakes. What are some of the failures that you've had, and what you learned from them?
Yeah, so being in this business now for quite some time, I'm still young, but at the same time, starting it at 19 years old, you have a lot of failures, successes, and one thing I could say is learning from the past. I mean, failures without learning from the mistakes, it's really hard to grow, right? I mean, I've learned spice from so much in my past that now you'll never make that mistake again. And with Liquipel, one of the things that I was kind of learned from was, when you're young and you have something that's so hot and, everybody wants a piece of it. And one of the biggest issues you'll have is to really stay focused and not let other people come into your business and ruffle the feathers and make issues happen. And that's kind of one thing I've learned is make sure you're always in control of your own destiny. Don't think that because you have one single success or one single hot product that you can just bring people in and, think that they're going to run the company and make it happen, because in reality, it's your idea, it's your company, and if you turn your back on that company or you think that someone else can run it, the odds of failure are extremely high. So, I would say that is one of the key things I've learned is never, let someone else run your company fully, and always keep involved. That's very important, is to stay involved in your dream and your passion and what you've created.
Yeah, absolutely. What would you say it takes to be a good entrepreneur? What are some traits?
So, I was always had three things, when I was creating and coming up with companies and expanding. Imagination, persistence, and patience. So you have to have imagination because you have to create and, solve problems, right? I mean, there's going to be so many things that come up in your everyday life of business that it's very important that you're able to imagine, not only imagine something to be a category buster, imagine something to create something that's unique in the marketplace, but also, how to solve the problems, right? If there's a problem, there's a solution. So imagination is very important. Persistence. So once you create it, once you've developed it, once you've thought of it, you have to continue to persist and never give up. That is so important. And then patience, right? So you have to be patient. You can't think that it's going to come overnight. One of the biggest issues with these young entrepreneurs and this generation that we're currently living in, people just think that it's so easy, and they don't realize the work that goes behind it. There's always that saying. They say that the harder you work, the luckier you get, right? But patience is very important because you have to keep going. You have to keep persisting and never give up. And to me, I've been very, very patient, and I'm now seeing a lot of growth, a lot of profit in all of the ventures that I've done. But it was 9 years, right? So if I could say, those three things, it's very, very important, and make sure to know that it is going to take a long time. It's not going to be overnight.
Dude, those are all awesome. Just the mindset that you have that if there's a problem, there's a solution with the imagination. I love that. Persistence. Something too with just like the younger guys that you're saying, they don't have the patience. Everything I've ever done of value and worthwhile always took way longer than expected. If it happened overnight like that, I probably wouldn't appreciate it as much either.
Exactly.
And so it's like, I always say too, you really got to give something a good try, and you got to put your head down and focus only on that thing for at least 6 months to see if you even like it. And then if it starts building up and going, okay, then you can take this into a business. And patience. I'm always relearning that lesson every day. Currently right now, just constantly being told to be patient. So those were amazing. That's awesome. What a great formula for being successful as an entrepreneur.
Yeah, and there's a couple of formulas I live by, and there's, a couple. I mean, I watch a lot of, motivational, speaking, but not so much not like the motivational speaking where it's, someone like a workout guy talking and saying, go do this, go do that. You can't, failure. I mean, that's not what I listen to. I listen to more like Brian Tracy, business strategies. And that to me is important because the more you can learn, the more that you can absorb the information, the better that you'll become to better yourself. Right. I mean, there's a saying in a business, there's, a glass of water. I don't know if you've heard this, but this is how the business, I look at business. So there's a glass of water and, the guy puts, a bunch of big rocks, in the glass of water and it overflows. And, they show the student, they say, do you see this? Does this glass look full? And the student goes, yeah, it's full of rocks. And then there's, pebbles, and then there's sand. And the teacher goes, no, this is not full at all. So you're saying I wouldn't be able to fit these pebbles and the sand and those giant rocks in this glass of water without it overflowing? And the student says, absolutely not, that it's full. Well, that's kind of how business is, right? So you have to really know your priorities and stack it properly. So, for example, if I put, the rocks and then the pebbles and then the sand and then the water, all of a sudden it fits and it would all fit into the cup. But if I put the sand, the pebbles, and then the rock, everything overflows. So in reality, in business and entrepreneurships and being an entrepreneur, you have to really know what your priorities are, and you really have to make sure that you are prioritizing things properly and you're not doing things the opposite way so that everything fits perfectly. That's really important.
Absolutely. And that's interesting too, like just where motivation comes from for you, and how to stay focused. See, I think, it's not always lack of focus, but maybe lack of motivation. So I'm just curious, over the last 10 years, how have you managed to stay focused and motivated?
It's a lot to do with, waking up in the morning and, really starting off the morning right? I mean, you can 10 years goes by very quickly, surprisingly. I mean, it's a snap of the finger and all of a sudden, 10 years is gone. So knowing how precious, time is and how precious it is to really, grow and utilize your time is what makes me motivated. That's what keeps me motivated. So I wake up in the morning and I know, hey, this time's going by way too quick. I got to wake up. I got to, get to work and I got to grow as not only as a person, but everything around me. So that's how I stay motivated. Just really knowing that, me as my personal goals, my personal mentality, if I'm not growing and I'm not accomplishing goals, then you really start to become dull and that's not where I want to be. I want to constantly accomplish things and create and that's what keeps me motivated is the drive to do that. And then being able to, leave impressions, and make sure that you can give back and you can, be in a position that one day, you'll be looked at and say, wow, that guy really did, help, his surroundings, right? And if you're not growing, you're not creating goals, and you're not being successful, it's really hard to be in that position.
Yeah, and I think progressing towards your goals also gives a sense of meaning and happiness in life.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, without goals, I mean, it's just like kind of like when you people say they want to retire. I mean, I could not imagine waking up every morning and not having, the ability to be able to work. I mean, work to me is what I love. I'm passionate about it. And that's people. It's funny. Like I see, like if my dad, for example, he's claims that he's retired, but every morning there's a new project on the table, and it's just solving problems and growing things is just what the human nature loves.
Yeah, I think we all love to grow, and whether we do it in business or in our relationships and friendships, everybody has their choice. I get really excited about that. You talked about waking up in the morning and feeling really grateful. I started doing just practicing gratitude myself, because that's always one of the things that, to be grateful for what you have, but still want to grow and have the opportunity to grow has always been something that I've struggled with. And so I started practicing gratitude. Do you have a practice, and maybe not just gratitude, but something you do in the morning that gets you primed for the day?
Yeah, so it's pretty funny, but I always listen to some sort of motivational speech or some sort of really positive things in the morning, whatever it is, whether it's like a video that's positive, but I start my morning with positivity, because it's like you said in the beginning, it's mindset, right? So if you wake up and you're putting on the news and there's, people dying and the natural disasters, I mean, all that stuff is negativity. And, if you start your morning like that, people like to go, wake up in the morning, turn on the news, and all of a sudden your whole day, it starts negative, right? So my routine is I always wake up. I actually, I'm a big fan of Tony Robbins. And, I've been to 3 of his seminars. I actually went to a program when I was a kid called the Choice Center, which was all about recreating yourself. And they basically break you down. And if you had a second chance, on this earth, how would you act and what would you do? And so, Tony Robbins, I just got a new house, but my old house, I would always have a trampoline. It was a small trampoline. It was, a little trampoline. And every morning for, 5 minutes, I would listen to positive music and jump on this trampoline for 5 minutes. And surprisingly, that's a routine that Tony Robbins says, is one of the best ways to start your morning. So you get your blood flowing, you really, wake up and you're surrounded by positivity, and you walk out of that door and you feel like $1 million, right? You're feeling like $1 million, you're feeling good. There's no negativity. You're wide awake and you're ready to accomplish and take over the world. And so that's what my routine is.
I love that. I'm a fan of Tony as well. And definitely getting up and moving, it gets the mind going and sounds like a great little morning routine. So I want to jump into you building your business, and you brought in some pretty cool partners early on, Pharrell and Steve Aoki, into the business. I was curious how you found those guys, how you brought them on, and how that helped you. I know that was a lot. Sorry.
We got this. No.
So how'd you meet these guys and get them to kind of endorse your brand?
Yeah. So Steve Aoki is actually a good friend of mine now, and you really look up to him. One of the most amazing guys I've ever met when it comes to really caring about people. And it's a funny story how he got involved into Liquipel. So if you guys know Steve Aoki, he's all about performing. Cakes are thrown, champagne's showered on everybody. And he was going through a bunch of laptops because he would get cake on them, or he would, spray champagne, and all of a sudden, his $1,100 MacBook Pro is destroyed, right? And so they contacted us because, we were all over the internet, at the time. And he's like, hey, do you guys think you could start liquipelling my DJ equipment? You could start liquipelling my computers. So when, I do a champagne shower, cake gets on it, I'm not going to ruin everything constantly. So he actually contacted us, and we started treating all his headphones, his computers, his DJ equipment. And then from there, he's like, I actually want to get involved, on a business level. And so, we did a deal together, and he's still, talk to him a lot to this day. We do meet and greets at, these big boxes. So we just did one for our Safeguard launch, which is the protection bundle at Walmart and Sam's Club, where he actually showed up. He did a releasing of his album, met a bunch of fans, and signed autographs for people. And surprisingly, that store was the top selling store, out of 4,800 locations. Right. So
surprise, right? Bring a world famous DJ into the store, you sell some product.
Exactly. No, but it really, it was funny because, we were at his house, and I'm like, Steve, let's go. Let's make it happen. So we're in the car. We're driving to Sam's Club for this meet and greet and product launch. And he ended up staying at Sam's Club and shopping and like buying video games. And like, he actually never been to a Sam's Club, which was pretty funny. And he's like, oh my God, the prices are so cheap here. So he ends up, so after the meet and greet, I'm thinking like he's going to come and want to be in and out like really quick. And he's like, this is so cool. Let's eat here. So then we go shopping. We end up being at Sam's Club for like, 3 hours, like eating and shopping. We had the pizza because they have that little food area, and he just had the greatest time. Like, hung out with the managers, ate with the managers. So everything that he does, it's like over the top, things that you would never expect him to do, being his caliber in the world, and being so famous. But, in his mind, he's just so genuine,
That's incredible.
Yeah.
And, nice to hear about somebody who's so famous and just so down to earth at the same time.
Yeah, and Pharrell too. He's the same way. He's great. And with Pharrell, the story with Pharrell is when we launched Liquipel, we had some pretty big investors. It was a crazy valuation, tech company, how those tech company stories are, like the Silicon Valley stories of the show Silicon Valley. I actually watched that season, the first season. I was like, wow, this is like my life. like the stuff in there was really funny. And so William Morris Endeavor, the largest talent agency, invested in the company. They basically told me, hey, this, and back then, I knew Pharrell from Nerd and things like that, but he didn't have Happy, the song Happy.
This is back in 2011.
2012. Okay. So he wasn't even, that big. He's really big now. Right. But he was always a very famous producer, but he wasn't necessarily in the spotlight. So with Pharrell, they said, hey, this guy's been watching your guys' company. He saw it on CNN or something, it's online. Because when we first launched, we were on CNN International. We were on the Today Show. We won the Edison Award.
Wow.
We were on ABC. Every news channel, front page of Yahoo, and Yahoo was pretty big, when we launched. And so he saw it and wanted to get involved. And so we brought him on, and he became a partner as well. And all of that, is very important, because any brand that I help create or help launch, it's all about pull through marketing and really drafting on existing brands, right? It's like if you can take like the Aoki name and the Pharrell name, everybody knows they're established. The amount of time, the amount of money that they've spent on, not themselves, but if you looked at it from an impression standpoint, their names and their ability to influence is incredible. So I always believed that you always had to bring these type of people into your company, not only to learn from and absorb their knowledge, but at the same time to really start to take your brand, draft on their names and their companies, and then the goal obviously is to surpass it, right?
Yeah.
So pull through marketing, really drafting on people's brands and names, and then really after drafting on it to surpass it. That's the key.
When you talk about the pull through marketing, using their reach that they already have, how do you proposition someone to want to join your company? How do you get them to realize the benefit for them?
Yeah. So if you're passionate about your own company and you're excited about it and you love it and that's all you can think about, and for you, it's not work, it's fun, that passion and that the way you talk about the company, people get excited with you. Right. It's like if I'm talking to someone like a Pharrell or, a Steve Aoki, they feel the passion I have, and, they start to, it really, starts to spread to them, and they get excited about it. And all of a sudden, they want to help because they see how passionate and how much you love and the drive that the person who's running the company has. And so that's kind of, when I met with them, they saw that in me. And at the end of the day, it ended up not being so much, only the company, but, the person who was myself, the passion and what I had and my vision that they kind of jumped on. And, the proposition really was for them just to be a part of this with me. And, they can tell when from being around people and understanding people, their drive and what their heart really wants. And to be honest, that's probably why they joined the company. It wasn't just because of the company, even though, it was a pretty big category buster, and now, Apple, Samsung, they all use what we pioneered, right?
That's incredible. And to be in Sam's Club and Walmart, I mean, the biggest retailer in the world. I'm curious. Yeah, you said that's the technology that they use. Do you guys work with Apple and Samsung at all?
So some stuff I can't say live, but I can tell you the technology what Liquipel developed, what and pioneered the super hydrophobic coating world into what you see today. I mean, we were the first company in the world to be able to take a phone, an iPhone, a Samsung, and coat it and completely submerge it and having zero effect, no corrosion. I mean, that wasn't out there, right? And so, when we did that, the whole electronic world went nuts.
Totally. So. It's interesting. I mean, it's such an innovative product, and nowadays too, you see apps being made, you see all these new inventions, things like Shark Tank, which is one of my favorite shows, and people are pitching new products all the time. What do you think is like the best way to innovate? And well, first, what does innovation mean to you?
So to me, innovation is I would not. I mean, in Liquipel's case, they say don't reinvent the wheel, make it better, right?
Yeah.
but I mean, in Liquipel's case, we actually did, really reinvent the wheel.
Yeah.
but to me, it's really about finding a problem that everybody has, that it's not that is on a mass scale, a huge market, and then solving that problem in a very easy way, easeability, one touch, very value added. So, I mean, that's what I see as innovation is, okay, if there's a problem, how can I solve that on a mass scale, make it easy to solve, and make a lot of money and be successul, right? and I
think when you add value to, you end up getting rewarded financially,
exactly.
When you help a lot of people. And so, we took a look through the factory today and just, looked at some of these new products. How are you guys constantly innovating and staying ahead in, today's world?
Yeah. So looking at the competition and the demographics, and the cell phone industry is a massive, industry. I mean, just accessories alone is, 20 billion. And, being that, even if you had a percent of a $20 billion industry, I mean, you're even, a fraction, right? I mean, that's still amazing, right? So, we always look at things that haven't been done before, but also at the same time, was our existing products. So like, for example, our Safeguard line. Our Safeguard line is, just a screen protection, right? That you see out there. There's been screen protections for forever. But we add technology and guarantees to everything that we do. So our screen protector, actually has technology behind it. It has a coating. It uses nanotechnology. And it actually, if you've seen some of the demos, you can take a hammer, a screwdriver, and, hit it as hard as you can. And at the end of the day, your screen's not breaking. So it's unique and it's a category buster. And not only is it a unique screen protection and a unique case, but we're the first company in the world to ever offer a you break it, we fix it guarantee. There's a lot of companies out there that say that they're impact protected and they have the best protection in the world, but no one's guaranteeing it. So by adding that value of the you break it, we fix it guarantee, we've now just created something that no one's done that added massive value to the consumer, and was able to expand into 7,000 locations because of that, right? Because it was just, like you said, the value add is so massive.
Totally. And also to be that confident in your product.
Yeah.
To take a hammer to something. It's really impressive. Even though Apple's new phones say that you can submerge them in water, I don't bring it near water.
Yeah. Because and they don't guarantee it.
Right. It's not waterproof. It's water resistant, I think.
And that's the thing, right? It's like one of the funny things about Apple, right? It's like they say they're water resistant, but if you damage your phone from water and you take it back, guess what? You're paying $1,100 out of your pocket to replace your device if you don't have insurance.
Yeah.
So it's one of those things where doing what we're doing and creating this preemptive insurance or this preemptive problem solving is what's creating so much value in our product, and that's why we're able to scale so much.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm curious, when you've been a serial entrepreneur, for someone who's kind of just getting started with an idea, what's one action you would recommend that they take to really bring that to launch?
So I think the most important thing when starting a company is to create a vision on whether it's a PowerPoint or whether it's however you create it. First, sit down and write out all of the things surrounding your idea, how you can do it, who you need involved, what it's going to take, the vision of what you're creating. And then to make it real, it's got to be on paper and it's got to be, in front of you, and you got to really visualize it. And I think it's creating like that presentation is the first step to making it a reality, because then you can really share it with people around you. And not only does it help, when you're sharing with people around you, now you're getting feedback from other people that have seen it, that can actually, look at it and give you advice. And like you said in the beginning of the show, surrounding yourself and getting advice from people who've done it before and is really important. Right. That's something that I cannot, tell you how important that was to me.
I wouldn't be who I am today if it wasn't for the people that I'm so lucky to have in my life. And I talk about this a lot. I've had some other people on the show. Tom McElroy, co-founder of Volcom, saying, he helps mentor. Mentorship is really big for him and really helped him. And he mentors kids now as well. And it really been helpful for me. But people always go, well, I don't have that person in my life. Maybe my dad wasn't a serial entrepreneur, somebody who was listening to this. And, I didn't always have the best role models in my life at the exact time. But what I always did was I looked for people to fit that role. I was so hungry to learn and to grow that I would constantly be trying to find somebody. So they're like, oh, well, you're lucky you found that person. But I was looking for them. And if you're not looking and then asking people for help, it's this weird thing, especially, when you're younger, you don't want to ask people for help. You want to do it all on your own. People want to help, If you ask, they'll give you advice a lot of times for free just because they want to see you succeed. So I think you're absolutely right. It definitely is who you surround yourself with. What kind of mistakes do you see younger entrepreneurs making, and how would you avoid them?
Yeah. So I would say one thing I've learned over the past 10 years, when you're starting something that is, from the ground up, make sure that you do a lot of the work yourself and you don't start hiring, right? I mean, one of my biggest mistakes was, we had almost 80 employees, 100 employees. I mean, within the first year of business. I mean, a lot of companies, obviously that don't have the ability to do that. Obviously, we were fortunate enough to have the capabilities to do that, but that was a huge learning experience for me. I mean, one thing if I can tell you in starting up a company, if you can contract it out or use a third party, do it, right? I mean, there's so many people that try to do everything themselves, but if you cannot pay someone this massive salary and they're experts and all they do is that one thing, and why hire someone who is going to make all this money when you could have a team doing it? That's all they do, and they're a contractor, right? And so, I mean, when I first started Liquipel, we were trying to manufacture ourselves and, cut it ourselves and produce it ourselves, and everything was just, all in-house. And so now all of a sudden, you're having, hiring people to do a cutting job or a building job where you can just hire someone who all they do is that. Instead of having employee doing 4 or 5 things, you can contract it out, and now all that person is doing is one thing, and they're super focused on it. And then that piece falls into this piece, and all of a sudden the puzzle fits a lot better.
So by giving it to people who only do that one thing, they're so good at it that now your product's even better and they're faster.
Exactly.
And they're only focused on that. And
you're not paying this massive salary or even salaries to all these people, right? I mean, you're utilizing, the people who are doing it for whether for not so much for free time, for example. I mean, these employees probably have a lot of free time, but because they're getting paid hourly, so they have the ability to waste time. People who are contracted out, they get paid on performance. They get paid on the end product. So by doing that, you get a lot more efficient products.
Totally. Yeah. Being the CEO of the company, and at one point in time having 80 employees and running this requires a lot of strong leadership skills. What would you say is some of the most important skills that you've had that really helped you in leading this company to its success?
Yeah, I mean, being a leader, it's very important, and being able to, I mean, I think one of the most important things is really listening, listen to your surroundings, take in advice, and treat people like, whether it's the person who's cleaning the office to the executive to the salesperson. I mean, treating everybody the same and being open to listening and taking advice from everybody around you is really important, because I've met a lot of CEOs who kind of get caught up in their own mind, and they get to a point where they think that because they're the CEO or because they're executive, they don't have to get their hands dirty, and they can think of something and tell someone to do it, and that person's going to do it. Well, it's more about being able to, whether you're the CEO or whether you're a salesperson or whether you're shipping. I don't care if you're who you are. If there's a problem and you have to get out there and ship the product yourself because you have to hit a deadline, you're going to do that, right? And that's what makes a good CEO. Being able to get your hands dirty no matter what position you are.
Yeah, that willingness to do anything to get the job done.
Exactly, right? And a lot of CEOs, good CEOs are like that. But a lot of CEOs are stuck in their own head and think, like I hired a couple presidents, and when we first started this thing, that literally, because they thought they were such experts, and that they were so above everybody else, caused, crazy, ripple effect in the whole company, because, one person can be a cancer for the entire company. So, finding the right person is probably the hardest thing to do in a business. And that, that's something you have to do.
So you're interviewing people and they're not quite the best fit. What are some things that you ask them to see if they're aligned with you guys?
It's more about the whole conversation with the person. And obviously, I think just individual questions, they're great, and you can, get a answer and really have a good impression on the person, but being with someone for like an hour and really like talking and having conversation about their personal life, about, you know, what their family is and, you know, where they come from. I mean, all that is actually just as important as the person answering the question that you're asking, right? I mean,
yeah, it's funny. One of my friends who we interviewed a couple episodes back, he runs a real estate investment firm in Denver, and he's also really passionate about breakdancing. And he actually met his partners through breakdancing, and when some other guys they started to partner with, they like took him to a breakdancing event, and you know, just to see how they vibe with it in a way. My girlfriend's a recruiter, and she like they were doing one for Insomniac, and for Insomniac, the guys like had to be into, you know, EDM music, right? And just kind of vibing with people and in a culture. I think is so important.
Absolutely.
And just being able to do that. How do you build in your company like a very positive, empowering culture?
So, I mean, yeah, culture is extremely important in a company. And you know, when I first started the company, I thought that, you know, it was all about really, you know, rules and making sure, you know, people are on, you know, coming in on time and dressing properly. But, you know, in reality, you know, I think that it's more about the atmosphere, right? Building a really good atmosphere within the company that people, you know, when they walk into that office, they feel good, right? I mean, you know, one of my other offices in Irvine, I mean, kind of like this, right? You know, you can't deposit excuses. Like surrounding your employees with, you know, positive, you know, and atmospheres, right? And really connecting and communication. And that I think is really important for the culture, and having everybody know that they can talk to you and they can talk to each other if there's a problem. So, you know, creating that environment is key to the culture.
So I have a question for you. You know, like you said, you're a fan of Tony Robbins, and you know, he talks a lot about beliefs and mindset. And here we talk a lot about the 80-20 rule, the Pareto principle, where I believe 80% of our results come from 20% of our actions. The key is just knowing which action to take. And I think one action that I hear from you, it's so powerful, is just the belief and the mindset that you've had to keep growing and keep pushing. What do you say to yourself when you're struggling? You know, you wake up on a day where you're like, man, I really don't want to like do this. How do you get over that?
Well, they say the longest day doesn't last forever, right? So I've definitely had those days. But, you know, and that is kind of what I do say to myself. You know, I think I've woken up with so many problems, and, you know, and one thing I can say is a lot of these entrepreneurs these days, when they have that problem, they try to do everything before they have to deal with that problem. Right. And that's not the right way to do it. I mean, you got to go in the morning and just know and say, okay, you know, this may suck and I don't want to have this conversation, or I don't want to have this phone call, or wow, this is, you know, a huge issue, but I got to solve this first. Right. I got to go after and hit that one head on. Because if you don't, and you wait for that problem or that issue that you have in that morning because you're just having a crap day because of an issue, you know, that your whole day is going to be crappy. Why? Because you waited to the end of the day to solve the problem that's causing the day to be so crappy. So always take the biggest issue, the biggest problem, and you know, deal with it head on first thing in the morning before you do anything else. That way, you know, it could you know, end out bad. The end result could end bad. It could end good, but at least you have, you know, an end to what's causing you to have that issue that day.
Totally. You know, it's funny actually. Sometimes when I'm feeling, you know, all over the place or lacking motivation, I'll do a power action list, which is just like 3 to 5 things that I want to. If I get number 1 through 3 done, everything is good. And so I just write that down, and I think that really helps just kind of knock it out. But kind of like what you're saying, the first one usually is not something I always want to do.
You never want to do it.
Yeah. But you just got to rip the Band-Aid off, man. Yeah. You just got to take action. Super cool. So wrapping up here, so much value, and I really appreciate it. What would you say is like the biggest action a new entrepreneur starting a company can take to kind of help grow their brand?
So, you know, I would say, you know, first of all, don't procrastinate. Really understand and visualize, what the brand, what is your brand, what is your demographic. It's really important when you're starting something new to understand and pinpoint who you're going after. Right, because you're not, always going after, everybody. I mean, you're not. I mean, this product may be great for 18 to 38 or 40, but you're not going to go sell to an 80-year-old who is in retired. Right. So I would say the biggest. The key to success is really understanding your vision, understanding your product, whatever it is, understanding the demographics, and then execution. Mm-hmm. Without execution, there's really nothing. And I see the biggest flaw in today's world is execution. People can talk about it, people can say it, they can present it, but when it comes down to executing, it's not so easy, and people think it's going to be easy. And at the end of the day, you have to continue to push forward and execute on what you believe in.
I agree. Execution is key, and so many people don't execute. I think a lot of times it comes down to fear. They're afraid of what's going to happen, or they're afraid of failure. They're afraid of what people will think of them, what other people will think of them, letting people down, whatever it is. But you got to step up. How do you, in the face of fear, step up?
So it's actually a funny story on how I've become who I am today. And a lot of it has to do with, when you were a kid, right? You remember even kids you see today, these kids have no fear, right? They run up to anyone, they talk to anyone, they're running, they're laughing. If they want to laugh, they're going to laugh. If they want to, scream and shout, they're going to scream and shout. And in reality, what builds fear in the human nature is, as we get older, all the hits and all the things that you see as you grow, it establishes fear within that person. And I actually went to a program, a seminar for 6 months called the Choice Center. It was out in Las Vegas. And what they do is they kind of break you down. I brought this up in the beginning, but they break you down and they say, okay, if you had a second chance to live, what would you do? And, it almost helped me eliminate all the fear that I had. And I would literally go talk to anyone. If I saw someone that I wanted to, have involved in my company, if they were at dinner, I'd find the right moment and I'd plan it and I'd go talk to them and I'd go show them. I would wait for CNN to be done filming and I'd go talk to them. You have to, you can't have, the mindset of fear. And what I call it is grungies, right? And in your brain, you have your brain and you have these grungies in the back of your head that say, oh, maybe I shouldn't call that guy. It's 6 o'clock. He's probably at dinner, or maybe, I shouldn't go over there and knock on the door. What if they're in a meeting? That guy's too powerful, or that guy is, an executive. I can't talk to him. All that in my mind, I look at them as grungies, and you have to eliminate those. If you don't eliminate those, you'll never be successful. I cannot stress how important that is. I've gone into doors by, I have a goal, and let's say, I wanted to get into Walmart, for example. I'll find the buyer, I'll find, the contact, and I will call them, 10, 15 times until they pick up. If you don't hear a no from that person, you're doing something wrong.
Right. In fact, they often say a sale, you hear 4 or 5 no's before you get a sale.
But if you're not hearing anything, you're doing something. You should. Yeah. What I'm saying is you have to continuously push and you should hear either a yes or a no. But if you got to hear something from that person, and I don't care how powerful you think they are. I don't care if you think they're at dinner, if you think they're in a meeting. You keep trying and trying and trying. They say it takes for a sales person, 15 follow-ups before you can get anywhere. 15, right? think about being an entrepreneur, having a new idea. If you think a salesperson is going to take 15 times to get a response, I mean, you're starting a new company, a new vision, a new product. I mean, you better think it's going to take more than 15 times to get what you want.
Oh yeah, it's like Colonel Sanders, KFC. They say you got 1,009 no's before someone finally said yes.
Exactly.
And it's funny, going up and talking to people at Fear. We were talking earlier. You're friends with Tom Bilyeu, who we interviewed on episode 5.
Amazing guy.
And great. Impact theory is fantastic. And I actually approached him at a networking event that he was putting on. And in my head, I had this vision, like, if I could just talk about the podcast, which at the time hadn't even launched yet, that I would be able to, kind of convince him, like, oh, this is a good idea. Like, let's do this. And I was definitely afraid of approaching him, though. He was pretty big. He had already started $1 billion company with Quest. And I think that people like us who try to, it's not about necessarily having no fear, but it's still taking action even though there is fear. And I hear that with those grungies there. Whenever I hear those in my head, I just do it. And then I'm like, oh, did I do it? Like, oh, it's done. All right, cool. What's the result? Now I can learn and get better next time. Yeah. Say hi to somebody, yell across the room or whatever it is, approach, for me, it was Tom and at the time. And, I've gotten a lot of yeses because of that. Gotten a lot of no's too, but that's just life. Super cool. I love that. And your ability to just, step forward and take action. So Sam, where can we find you online?
Yeah, so I have all social media, Sam Winkler, at Sam Winkler. Obviously, Liquipel, is the company that I'm running. That's, Liquipel, but I'm very active on Instagram. So I would say if there's anyone that wants to follow and kind of see the life and some motivation and what I do on a daily basis, Instagram would be the best. And then obviously LinkedIn for my professional side.
Awesome. Cool. So we always wrap it up. Sam, what is your next level of success?
My next level of success is to really get to a point where I can, do something impactful that creates a ripple effect for the entire, world. And when someone looks at me, they say, this guy made a difference. This guy helped. And then that to me is, the most important thing is to really make an impact when you're not here, right? I mean, when you're gone, I mean, like I say, time goes by so fast. So it's so important to really make that impression.
Awesome. Thanks so much for coming on Unleash Success.
Thank you, Corey. I had a blast. Thanks so much.
If you guys enjoyed the show and learned something of value, the one ask that we have is please go subscribe. If you'd like to leave us a 5-star rating and review, that definitely helps us get our message out there. Because each week I'm going to interview amazing people, and I want to be able to give you more and more tools and strategies that get you real results. Feel free to connect with me on Facebook or Instagram at Corey Corpodian, or just visit the website at unleashsuccess.com. Remember, knowing is not enough. Knowledge alone is not power. Action is. Because action is the only way to get the results you want in life and truly live the life of your dreams. So go take some action, subscribe to the podcast, and get ready to unleash success in you.